So basically, we are trying to run down the clock and analyze Trump's administration because whether you like it or not, Trump is gravitating towards the end of his first term in office. Trump is a case study. His administration and his achievements is a case study in the use of soft power. I'm always talking about soft power and I'm linking it to the Trump's administration. When Trump became president, I think I can remember that the day he was sworn in, I was in the office and I was chatting with some of my friends. I was telling them that you're looking at a rookie, you are looking at a successful businessman that is engaging into the journey of the unknown. Politics is not a platform Trump is conversant with. He understands business. He is a CEO, so he knows how to get the job done in that ecosystem. So you are looking at a businessman that is making inroads into politics. As far as I'm concerned, he did so well in his first 4 years as president. And as far as I'm concerned, soft power has a very, very important role in Trump's administration. When you talk about soft power, you are trying to engage your enemy from the scope of intellectualism. That's basically what soft power is. So you're adopting sanctions as punishments. So when you talk about sanctions, basically, sanctions are simply punishments. Like I always say, when you go about issues, you either go about it the right way or you go about it the wrong way. If you commit a crime, you have to face justice. To a judge, sanctions are very, very important because they help balance the scales of justice. You can't do something wrong and not expect consequences. So that's basically what sanctions is. You can't talk about soft power without talking about the effective use of sanctions. So it's like playing football. In FIFA, it's called fair play. FIFA expects you to play the game by the rules. But if you do not play the game by the rules, there are consequences. If you tackle a player in the box setting, there's going to be a consequence, and that consequence is a penalty kick. So if you do not obey, you face judgment. If you do not obey, you face sanctions. So soft power is credited to the success of Trump's administration. If a player goes into the opponent's box and he's tackled such that he falls down, the referee blows his whistle. When the referee blows his whistle, the player that has been infringed upon gets a free kick. Most people don't like sanctions. When you talk about sanctions, people are not interested. A lot of people like to act without consequences. Now, most people that have those ideologies or orientation are people that are totalitarians. You see, somebody like Putin. You see somebody like Xi. You see somebody like the supreme leader of North Korea. You see somebody like Erdogan. You know, in their minds, they think like totalitarians. They hate the concept of sanctions. They want to live life without consequences. That's the reason why they hate sanctions. They don't like sanctions. So if you withhold sanctions, wickedness, atrocities, human rights violations, and abuses will be the order of the day. That is exactly what will happen to the world. So it's important to know when and how to use sanctions. And in Trump's 4 years in office, the guy has mastered the art of deploying soft power and sanctions and getting the job done. Whether you like it or not, there are friends and enemies in the world. So in international politics, you talk about allies. Your allies are simply your friends, people you share special relationship with, people you call trade partners or economic partners that you enjoy collaborations or cooperations with. Those are allies. So allies or friends don't deserve sanctions. Sanctions go to foes. Sanctions go to enemies. So when you say sanctions go to foes and enemies, it does not mean that your friend or your ally can be sanctioned. A friend or an ally can be sanctioned if he's drifting apart. Like what they are doing to Turkey in relation to Erdogan's unquenching appetite for Russian weapons. Erdogan is supposed to be a member of NATO, but today he's getting sanctions. He's getting punishments. Why? Because he's doing the wrong thing, because he's disobeying the rules. So even in the United Nations, they apply sanctions. So you are having a Trump administration that dwells more on intellectualism. You are seeing a guy that deploys intellectual assaults in getting the job done. So you see in Trump's administration, the guy is always talking about blacklisting. Blacklisting is simply sanctions you apply to companies that are not obeying the rules. You talk about tariffs, you talk about economic sanctions, you talk about bans. Those are some of the things that made Trump's administration very, very eventful. So sanctions is not just restricted to allies. Sanctions is not just restricted to foes or enemies. Allies could also get sanctions. Allies will get sanctions if they fail to obey the rules. So basically, sanctions are deterrents that help balance the scales of justice. So it's important to know when and how to apply them. That's the valid point. So friends, if they obey the rules, friends or allies, if they do the right thing, friends or allies, if they continue to grease the strategic partnership or relationship, they get grants. When you talk about grants, grants are different from loans. If a beggar sees a rich man on the street, he brings forth or stretches forth his hands to collect money. So when you give alms, you are not expecting a return. That's exactly what grants are. So that's what allies get. Friends get grants. Friends, they get grants. They get debt relief. Friends get loans. Friends get financial aid. Allies get strategic partnership. Allies get mutual or special relationships. Allies get tax holidays. Allies get concessions, allies get pardons. In America today, they are talking about the way a man at Trump is actually dishing out pardons. He knows that his administration is almost coming to a close or coming to an end. So he identifies his friends, he identifies his allies, and he says, I use my prerogative of mercy to pardon you. So it is part of the rights or powers of the president to pardon anybody. So it does not matter if that person is on death row. If the president signs a presidential pardon, mercy covers it. The person will be loosed and they'll set him free. So it's that simple. That's what you get when you have a president that understands the use of sanctions and soft power. So if you are not an ally or a friend, the opposite is the case. You won't get grants. If you are not an ally or a friend, you won't get debt relief, you won't get financial aid, you won't get goodies. If you're an enemy or a foe, the guy will make your life miserable. So let us look. I've already given 2 examples of how Trump did so well with punishing his enemies. Number 1 is Iran. Iran is one of the nations in the world that has received a bombardment of US intellectual assaults. So you are looking at an economy that has lost more than $200 billion because the American president is not happy with the leader of Iran. If you convert $200 billion to naira, you know what that means? So that is the cost of being an enemy. So you are seeing why foreign nations are interested in America. Why? Because they are beginning to wake up that the leader of America holds the keys. They are beginning to be conscious that the leader of America holds the keys. So you are friends with America. What I have just said as goodies, are some of the things you get.